of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens, our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way, because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Hallelujah Ginger Tea drink and Hallelujah Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body, because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Hallelujah Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Hallelujah from all shops around.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
How do you make your cup of tea? Well, personally, I actually get my tea bag, put it in the cup, and then put in the just boiled water, allow the tea bag to fuse with the water so that I exactly get what they call quote-unquote black tea. Thereafter, I can add a spoon of honey or sugar according to your preference. Personally, I would go with honey. It's the healthier option. Anyway, that is exactly how Good Morning Uganda is intended. For every single morning, we'll make you a cup of tea, letting you know what is currently happening around your area code and within the country. The point is, we must keep you informed and up to date with what is happening, and that is our commitment. So, welcome to Good Morning Uganda. My name is Priscilla Nalwoga, and we're definitely delighted to be here with you on Tuesday, 26th October 2021. It's been a very tough day, right from Saturday when we had the Komamboga bombings, and the whole weekend was daunted by that sadness. However, yesterday morning, right here on Good Morning Uganda, we gave you a report that was coming in from Barra Town of one of the buildings that was gutted with fire. Thinking that that is the end of it, in the afternoon of yesterday, another sad thing happened. Another bomb blast on a bus heading to the countryside, claiming lives of 2 people. And of course, police is still handling investigations in that regard. Could it be terror indeed? Should we be scared? Well, we're going to be having these conversations. But at the end of the day, this is such a time that you actually need to wake up, get on your knees and pray to your God and ensure, ask Him to protect you and your family, your loved ones, but also at large, the country where we work, places that we work in. You know, here in Uganda, we have different markets that are always constantly filled with people. If this was to happen in a larger area code, it would be saddening, the number of lives it would claim. This is not going to become our state. No, this too shall pass. We are sure that with all the security that we do have in our country, Uganda, we shall be safe, and we are safe. Away from that, of course, I am joined by the distinguished brownies today, because they're both wearing brownie. They didn't give me, you know, a hint on what color we should wear this morning. So, but I do welcome Felix Nkunda on this morning. How are you, Felix?
I'm awesome. How are you, Priscilla?
Very good.
It's good to see you this morning.
Thank you very much.
How is everything?
Well, we hope for the best, that's for sure. Yes. Molen Kenyana, good morning to you.
Yes, a very good morning to you, Priscilla.
How was your night?
Felix, my night was okay. I can't complain.
Okay, all right. What is your message of hope amidst this potentially rising terror around us?
Well, Priscilla, you did start it off well, saying that we need to get on our knees. We need to pray. I think it is the right time to really get back and reflect on what prayer can do for you. We have to ask for that safety from what is at least assured. That is the prayer from guidance from God, and also make sure that you're clean in mind, you're just in prayer. Yeah.
And Felix?
Well, I think this is a time where we must reflect on the things that we never think about. Our personal security, but more so God. It's key most times like this, because you can imagine when it happened in the bar. I heard people yesterday talk about those were people who had gone to eat pork, what. Now I don't know if the people in the bus were also eating pork. So it's just the evidence of the fact that probably it's getting closer. It gets closer to the people. You can imagine who had ever thought.
Like no one is safe right now, because you imagine a scenario where that could have been you in that bus.
In that bus, you know. So I think we just need to be very, very vigilant. That's a matter of fact. And we must avoid crowded places.
Yeah.
Because clearly target people that are more than 2 or 3. You just have to avoid crowded places and do not access. There's a time in this country where you would refuse to enter a place if there was no checkpoint. So how about we get back into that? Now we need to be very much vigilant.
Well, I will say there's always a positive to everything. Yesterday, I was surprised. By 6:45, the streets of Kampala were actually empty. There was no vehicle, there was no traffic jam on a Monday evening. That's the first I have seen of its kind under the new normal. People are now being more sensitive on being law-abiding citizens and abiding by the current SOPs. Curfew is still at 7 p.m. Please, this is not Kenya. We are in Uganda, and of course abiding by the other SOPs in the control and fight against COVID-19. Wear your mask, get yourself a vaccine, and ensure that you sanitize everywhere you are and for every interaction, even if be it money touching a table, ensure that you have a sanitizer on you. Away from that, of course, we have to let you know other news that happened in the course of the day, the evening yesterday. Perhaps you missed out on it. Well, in the morning, we give you a dose of that, and then we'll also look at local stories and international stories, but also in regards to weather, nature and climate, the cost of these things that are happening. Who is going to be paying that cost? Mwalimu Kenyana will be giving us an update in that regard. Robert Kirabo is yet to join us for the morning, so for those of you that are asking yourselves where he is, well, he's around. But speaking of around, let's kick off by looking at the local stories. Police has vowed to be diverted by same self-claims of the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria for having the responsibility on the Komamboga explosion over the weekend. The AIGP Abbas Byabagaba, the head of the anti-tourism unit of Uganda Police Force, says security is not working with this terror group. The Islamic State, or ISIS, which is a militant organization that emerged as an offshoot of Al-Qaeda in 2014, that took quick control of large parts of Iraq and Syria, raising its black flag in victory and declaring the creation of the Caliphate and imposing strict Islamic rule in a statement issued on Sunday, claiming responsibility of the terror attacks that took security agencies in Uganda by surprise in a partially remote village of Komamboga, north outskirts of the capital, Kampala. However, speaking to the media, the Director Counter-Terrorism Unit of the Uganda Police Force, AIGP Abbas Byabagaba, has described the ISIS claims as diversionary from the real investigations. Byabagaba says the force is not being moved by any internal nor foreign claims. However, security in Uganda has clustered the terror act as domestic. Uganda has several known terror groups ranging from the ADF, which police is currently investigating in relation to the attack. No suspect so far has been arrested in connection to the attack, though several guidelines have been issued to the public to encourage vigilance over the terror threats. Still regarding terror, at least one person has been confirmed dead and several have been wounded in an explosion on a bus near Kampala. Police said 2 days after a deadly attack in the Komamboga claimed by ISIS. Police spokesperson Fred Enanga said bomb specialists were sent to Uganda following a deadly explosion in a bus belonging to the farm Swift Safaris around 5 p.m. yesterday. Enanga said that wounded people were being evacuated from the area and the scene, quote-unquote, has been cordoned off pending a thorough assessment and investigation by the bomb experts. We shall periodically give updates surrounding the incident. Enanga gave no more details on the suspected causes of the explosion, but President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni in a tweet said the hunt for the perpetrators is continuing and that the clues are clear and plenty. All this has, in one way or another, been linked to the National Unity Platform, whose political leadership is demanding for swift and honest investigations from government into the Komamboga bomb blast that left one life lost and scores injured. The demand seeks to have perpetrators known and brought to book. The spokesperson for National Unity Platform, Joel Senyonyi, said police have leading clues to the incident following reports of ISO operatives alleged to have been involved in the attack. The National Unity Platform main opposition party has downplayed reports associating it to have masterminded the improvised explosive device that exploded in Komamboga, a suburb adjacent to Kampala capital city, killing one person and severely injuring 5 people. The leadership of NUP is also treating allegations that a person dressed in NUP t-shirt was sighted on the scene of crime few minutes before the improvised explosion device exploded. However, other statements indicate that the Islamic State or ISIS, which is a militant organization that emerged as an offshoot of Al-Qaeda back in 2014, has owned the terror attacks on Uganda, a fact that NUP leadership is treating as uncoordinated and fabricated statements aimed at framing NUP leaders with charges. Despite of these allegations, NUP says it's grieving with the affected families, but it's demanding for swift and honest investigations into these explosions. And finally, on our local stories, the High Court in Masaka has dismissed a bail petition for the 2 members of Parliament, Mohammed Segirinya and Alan Sewanyana, on Bijambia murder charges in the Greater Masaka region. The magistrate of this court, Lawrence Tweyanze, said the 2 may use their positions to interfere with the investigations and also refuse to return to court for trial. The 2 suspects, Mohammed Segirinya and Alan Sewanyana, through their lawyers Elias Lukwago and Shamim Malende, filed a bail application seeking for their release, arguing that they are being charged with the same cases which previously court granted bail for, though the bail was never honored. However, their lawyers Lukwago and Malende prayed to court that the suspects are law-abiding and cannot disappear. In his ruling, Magistrate Tweyanze said the sickness of the 2 are suffering from can be treated while they are in prison. Magistrate Tweyanze also worried that the suspects are likely to use their positions and interfere with the investigations. And according to the magistrate, the 2 MPs are charged with many cases ranging from capital offences, for which he is skeptical to grant bail to them. Against these suspicions, Magistrate Tweyanze dismissed their request to stand surety for the suspects, though directed police to fasten their investigations and the prison services to ensure better treatment is accorded to them. And now for our international news update.
Now we will be looking at international stories, and our first story will be from Afghanistan, where we see a very, very sad story. And this is that Afghan baby girl sold for at least $500 by a starving family. And the same, Afghanistan is facing the biggest humanitarian crisis in the world, with the country seeing a sharp deterioration into the situation since the Taliban seized power in August. Now, international funds which are propped that is propped up the country's fragile economy have been stopped as the world debates how to deal with the Taliban regime. The United Nations has issued a stark warning that millions will die if urgent aid does not reach the country soon. In a video, BBC's Yogita Limaya travels to, Medicine San Toriere Hospital in Harat in the west of the country and the rural areas out of the city, and witnesses a first-hand dire situation on the ground. Now, US unveils new coronavirus rules for international travels, and the vast majority of adult travelers who want to visit the US will need to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 starting November 8th. All visitors older than 2 years, regardless of the vaccination status, will also need to present a negative coronavirus test taken within 3 days of travel. Now, according to an order signed by the US President Joe Biden on Monday, airlines will have to collect contact information on the passenger to help with contact tracing and store it for 30 days. Children and teenagers under the age of 18 will be exempt from vaccination rules, and the new policy comes as the Biden administration moves away from the restrictions that ban non-essential travels from several dozen countries. Now back to Africa. Sudan's military fire on anti-coup protesters, killing several. Now at least 7 people have been killed and 140 injured as thousands took to the streets in protest against Sudan's military seized power from transnational government. The thousands of people joined rallies against the military takeover on the streets of the capital, Khartoum, and its twin city of Omdurman, after security forces arrested interim Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok and other senior officials early on Monday morning. A health official said at least 7 were killed by gunfire. Now, the leader of the takeover, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, dissolved the Military Civilian Sovereignty Council that had been set up to guide the country to democracy following the overthrow of the long leader, that is Omar al-Bashir. Al-Burhan, who is also the head of the Power-Sharing Government Council, declared state of emergency across the country, saying the armed forces needed to ensure safety. He promised to hold elections in July 2023 and hand over to an elected civilian government.
Talk about climate change. Now, greenhouse gas levels hit record high in 2020, according to the UN report. Now, greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere hit a new record high in 2020. The UN Weather Agency reported in a stark warning about worsening global warming. Now, Monday's annual report on heat-trapping gases in the atmosphere by the World Meteorological Organization showed that carbon dioxide levels surged to 413.2 parts per million in 2020, increasing at a faster rate than the annual average over the last decade, despite a temporary dip in emissions during COVID-19 pandemic lockdowns. The report said concentrations of carbon dioxide, methane and nitrous oxide, the gases that are warming the planet and triggering extreme weather events like heat waves and intense rainfall, were all above pre-industrial era before 1750, when human activities started disrupting the Earth's natural equilibrium. Now, the MEMO's Secretary General, that is Peter Talas, warned that the current rate of increase in heat-trapping gases would result in temperature rises far in excess of 1.5 degrees Celsius, that is 2.7 Fahrenheit, above the pre-industrial average of this century, the target set out by landmark 2015 Paris Climate Agreements. We are way back off track, Talas said.
Much more than Kenana and Felix Nkunda for those updates. Also, just to update you, in terms of your health, you definitely need one of these. You can go for the ginger or you can go for the tamarind. They're both very interesting, but I highly recommend you try the tamarind. It's a fruit that I've always seen around. Never thought that it can actually be processed and packaged and consumable for you on a daily. So buy Uganda, build Uganda, but also build your immunity system with this Hallelujah Natural Reflexology drinks. They are good for your health. We want to engage you this morning and we want to find out from you in regards to fisheries. There's a poll question. People have been calling it a ban. Some have been saying government said. Well, this morning we'll make it clear for you. But in regards to a poll question,
Now, how fair is the move to stop the Nile perch fish consumption in Uganda, but rather for export purposes? How fair is the move to stop the Nile perch fish consumption in Uganda, but rather for export purposes? Be able to tell us what you think about this. And the thought is that you have eaten enough Nile perch. It will only be good for selling outside the country. Be able to share with us on our social media platform, on Twitter, UBCGMU, and WhatsApp 0709 60 25 92. Of course, also on our Facebook page. And for some of you who are streaming live on YouTube, you can as well leave your message or even send an SMS on the same number.
Emputa versus Engege. Felix Nkunda. Which one is your favorite? And what is your response to
remember when
the
we were young, we used to call it Empita. Empita. So nothing can beat Emputa, clearly. Nothing.
Okay. All right. Well, in Kenya, Mputa versus Engege, and your response, of course, to the poll question?
My friend, this Mputa better stay, because really, if you're a fan of fish, you know how sweet Mputa is. So I'm one of those people who are saddened. I hope this doesn't come to be true. But again, you never know with this country.
Okay, all right. Well, you never know. Personally, my memory of Mputa, I have an uncle called Uncle Ntale. So every holiday, literally would go to his house, and we had this tradition. Every Tuesday was Mputa and chips. So in the morning, we would all wake up, go to the market and buy the Mputa, come back home, take the whole day preparing it, and would have dinner about 5, 6 o'clock. But like the joy of participation to the market, come back, clean it, prepare. The excitement of eating chips at Mputa was so great. It is a delicacy. It's a natural resource in Uganda. We never wanted, really. It's good who
back it up, because that is about to be taken away.
I just want to enjoy it,
Yeah, that could be taken away. So keep those memories dear.
Okay.
Better enjoy
while it lasts.
Yeah, I think this week everyone should be able to have Mputa in their diet for sure.
Until
before anything happens.
Okay, while stocks do last, Uganda also has to make money, because now in this financial year we're financing 76% of the budget, and if we can find other alternative ways of financing our own budget, the better. Perhaps maybe this is one of the avenues. Again,
so sacrificing them.
Please let us know what your opinion is. We want to find out from you your experience with Mputa versus Gege. Tell us a story, but also in regards to this, if it was to go through. And also in our newsreel, we are going to be clearing all the mysteries around this conversation. Some have been thinking it was government who started it. Some already think it's a ban that has been implemented. No, in our newsreel, we are going to be talking about the fisheries industry and the recommendations between the committee in Parliament and also the Exporters and Investors Association. Of course, in Good Morning Uganda agenda, we're going to be talking about achieving school feeding in Uganda. And our guest is Julius Kapwepwe, who's going to be here to talk about children being in school with or without food and the impact of that on education as a whole. That will be our dialogue in Good Morning Uganda agenda. Ruben Pima Shibirango will be here to give us a sports update, as we do have Tuesday coming through. Yet another guest, I really hope. Yesterday's guest was very engaging. To find a female fan that vocal for a club such as Vipers, well done. And Molen Kenyan, what should we be expecting this morning?
Well, we're still looking at impacts of extreme weather events, and now specifically drought, with a focus on Mali. Now, since the 1970s, they have had their water bodies being covered by sand dunes. Now, that is, of course, very impactful in terms of agriculture sector and other sectors. We'll look more into that story.
Okay. All right. Others are asking us if we can look into the ban on senene. If this ban on fish could extend to ban on senene, well, that would definitely cause the Republic of Masaka to, go on.
Business in Masaka will get to a standstill. I know people are already preparing for the season. So
let me tell you,
that is business you're playing with right
older
there.
Brothers right now are finding ways of, harvesting these Senene.
Hey.
Amidst curfew. Remember, curfew is at 7
You can
p.m.
touch anything you want.
But
There's
Don't
banana
even think
masaka
about
here. Hey.
touching. Don't even think about touching Senene. Touch your puta, your feet, whatever.
Yeah.
Let nobody think about Senene.
but Namasaka and
Banana
Yevene.
masaka, my
Senene.
friend.
Let me tell you, actually in the Senene season, and this is like, I found it very amusing, but every time this season would come, and back in the day it used to be 2 seasons, around March and then also around October, November, my father would buy a whole sack of Senene.
Actually,
There are those
You
in
take it
June.
home.
Senene gets to be taxed even internally alone.
Hey,
You'll
don't
be
give them
surprised it may contribute
more money
than even
Puta.
than your puta thing you're saying. Honestly,
Clearly, you guys
let me
have a
tell you,
lot of
in the
love
season
for
of the
Senene.
Senene,
Yeah.
people build mansions in just those 2 months, 3 months. Mansions. You know, a cup of Senene is 8,000. 8,000 a cup. So imagine a sack. How many cups are in?
Yeah.
And remember, 8,000 is for some of us who know the depots. Now the people who buy on streets.
on the street.
Yeah.
It could go for about
12,000.
16,000.
Yeah, it's possible.
Now, if they give you, if you're
If
buying
you
a
have
Senene for
spoon.
1K, it's a spoon. And the way they make the spoons flat like this.
It is so
It doesn't
small that you
scoop.
will need more. So you end up buying actually for like
So,
5,000.
You can touch whatever you want.
Not
but if you
the
want
Senene.
to see war, hey, an uprising, I dare anyone to talk about exporting
So where are these
Senene.
depots for Senene that you talked
Why
about?
are you asking?
I want to get in business.
Okay, all right. The season is around. Personally, every single morning now I get to see one grasshopper. So anytime now we are having the flooding
You've
of
not
this.
started eating
delicacy.
grasshoppers.
In my house. I mean,
Again.
finding it in the market and what in my house every single morning. I
Felix
rest assured
knows where the
I'm going to
depots
find
are.
a
This is the guy
grasshopper.
to actually.
And your guy
Well,
from
it's
Senene,
still
if
Good
you-
Morning
The
Uganda
guy.
with the laughs and the fun equally part of your morning here to brighten up your morning. We continue on to our 7 o'clock hour, leaving you with the song of the day. See you on the other side. to 9 a.m. Good Morning Uganda. My name is Priscilla Nalwoga alongside Felix Nkunda, and we do have 6 minutes past 7 a.m. this morning. But before we get into our newsreel, which is a usual dissect every single hour of 7 o'clock, we want to first engage you in our poll question, from which we're going to get the basis of our discussion with Felix this morning.
Now, our poll question is: how fair is the move to stop the Nile perch fish consumption in Uganda, but rather for export purposes? And the same I'll be able to share with us on our social media platforms, that is #UBCGMU, and of course our WhatsApp number, and on Facebook. And for some of you who are catching us live on YouTube, you'll be able to leave a message, but also on the same number you can leave an SMS.
Well, thank you so much. Now, there is a proposal on the Parliamentary Committee for Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries on ring-fencing Nile perch trade. And this proposal was presented before the MPs that sit on this committee last week. And of course, the dialogue was that if we can look at this, it could be a very good potential ground for future foreign investment and trade that is remunerated back into the country in terms of revenue. And among the proposal was to actually streamline the fisheries sector and cause the ban of local consumption of Nile perch. And the proposal was basically saying have a ban on Nile perch and also stop local consumption of Nile perch, and then allow the locals or the natives to consume other fish like ngege, or what is known as tilapia. And then that way the investors they can be able to sell off this fish, which apparently has high demand on European markets. Now, of course, you do have Sujal Goswami, who is the chairman, Uganda Fishing Exporters Association, saying it's very important to separate Nile perch and tilapia for local consumption. Local consumption should be limited to tilapia. Local trade should be limited to tilapia, but Nile perch should be limited to exporting to other parts of the country, attracting foreign trade. But also, in his words, it would be a wonderful thing for Uganda. And I turn to you and also to Felix Nkunda. Given the history and the stories that we have shared earlier in our 6:30 time, we've gotten to find out how sentimental this particular delicacy is to the culture, the customs of Uganda, and also the livelihood of Ugandans. So how do you feel about the statement that is being made, by Sujal in regards to it is important and it's good for our own good?
Well, of course, one would say that that's us being greedy or what, but I've also had conversation, people trying to categorize this discussion into food, and they're saying it's just food. There are many other options to eat. Mm-hmm. You must also know that when something is brought for contemplation in a country or in a civil organization, it must have an end in it. And the question is, what is the end in this discussion about the Nile perch? Do you mean to say that there are no other ways this can be done, where we don't have the total limited appreciation of the same species in Uganda or by Ugandans? Do we mean to say that Ugandans are eating Nile perch for free? Mm-hmm. No, I don't know. I'm just thinking aloud, and I'm thinking that are we consuming it for free? Is it being given by government, or that we just go and pick and then you go and cook? I think we are also having the same at a cost. I would nevertheless prefer to have this discussion in line of the alternation of how better can we professionalize some of these informal kinds of work. I have been saying this, and I will say the same time and again, that the problem may not necessarily be the low collection of taxes or monies from such entities, but the problem is basically that we have failed to set up and guide the informal sector to a position or to a place where it can be well taxed. Let me give an example. How much average do you think, like let me say profits on average, do you think someone who makes chapati makes on a day?
On average, 200,000 shillings, 300,000
On a
shillings.
daily?
Yeah.
On a daily?
Yeah.
And the profit of that is? Depending on the location where the person is. But there are people who make probably more than that, who are in high end areas. So how does government benefit directly from this person?
Well, this person buys the products, the complementary products,
That's what I'm saying.
the cooking
Directly.
oil,
For example,
the flour, the
thank
flour.
you. He uses
Those are taxes
flour
that they are
and
paying.
oil.
Yes.
Those are the ones probably where he pays taxes indirectly. But when you go to tomatoes, onions, how have we organized farmers to tax them? Because imagine someone who brings in Kampala, let's say in a week, he brings like 3 trucks of matoke. How do you tax this person? Away from the tax they pay maybe at the market.
As traders, yes.
You get it? Because someone is earning billions and billions of money, and that. Now, the absence of formalized manners or ways of taxing the informal sector is the problem. You can imagine if we are getting something from these people. You go and see someone, let's look at the people, the border riders. Away from these taxes they pay,
In
which taxes?
fuel,
Yes.
that's it.
But
And
someone can make 100,000 every day. If someone has revenue of in Saturdays, that person can make 3 million or even more. Okay, you look at people. Say, let's say guys who are doing welding today. Before you know, they're all over. Go to garages.
Actually,
people are making money.
You speak of garages. There's so many garages that mushroomed up in lockdown,
and that's
simply
what I'm
because
saying.
it had been considered
You come to our
unessential.
localities.
Yes.
You find that you go to a garage, you pay over 2 million shillings, and probably there is profit on all those things and what they work and what, and someone maybe is making off that 2 million like 500,000 shillings from just one car. Maybe imagine they are doing 3 cars. How are we tapping into that as revenue? And that's a challenge for government and URA as a or the Ministry of Finance for that matter. We must. The reason why it's hard to tax these informal sectors is simply because not much has been put in by government. Go to carpenters. What is the tax policy for who are making these beds? Everywhere, beds, chairs. What is it? Away from these Nina interiors and the big companies, which say they import and what and all that. For us to have this discussion straight head on, we cannot like isolate the discussion from the informal sector. When you go to these landing sites in Uganda, the Mwaro, what is the taxation policy for government? For government. Some time ago, I remember I was at one of the landing sites, and the gentleman went to the waters. He caught his fish, tilapia. He came and sold each one, I think about 23,000, 25,000. He had about 20, and he bagged his money and went to the bar. He would go back in the night. How are we tapping into the potential of the informal sector? That is the only way to remedy such funny suggestions.
Which
because
is not,
we feel that, because we feel that we are not collecting enough, but yet we should be collecting enough. Now, and it all starts there. If you export, let's say, the snail patch, does that solve the entire problem? Now, it's the same attribution of how someone chooses to look at dealing with the symptom. The problem is low income or low revenue. How do we improve it? And honestly and truly, you know the people, let's talk about the people, the women who cook food in our localities. How do we formalize? When you travel abroad, Priscilla, you notice that every work that is there is professional. A cobbler is a professional worker. You'll go to that, you look for a store where to fix shoes, my dear. And when you get there, you'll pay through the nose. When you want to shave your hair, in Europe, you'll die.
Yeah.
You either have someone at home to help you.
For millions of shillings.
Now,
yes.
Actually, the situation has been helped by Nigerians and Ugandans who have gone to these places. That you call them and tell them, come to London, come to Liverpool. They're always on the train. moving from here to go and play was here. But do you know how much money they
make?
Because that kind of work has been professionalized.
Okay.
Now let us help these informal people professionalize the kind of work they do. If you're talking about Umpota, what can we do? Can't we add value here? You're going to see, if you're talking about selling it abroad, and you'll see the prices they'll give you.
Well, one of the recommendations in this fisheries bill amendment is actually registration and licensing of fishermen and also their vessels as a measure of one, fighting the illegal fishing, which is a conversation we've had time and again here in Good Morning Uganda, but also to streamline exactly what you are saying and also deal with piracy on some of our water bodies here. And will this go a long way in actually professionalizing the trade?
One would say it is not just enough to have the law, and that's a matter of fact. The law in its own self may not be the true remedy to the challenges that are facing the fisheries. For example, if the laws are in place, and not that they are actually not even in place, for those that are in place, how are we performing? We need something very solid that definitely touches ground in terms of action. In terms of action. You know, when you read about criminology, people tend to line towards crime or offenses because some of them, and one of the causes is that some of them do not see themselves as direct beneficiaries at the end of the chain. Now, you're putting the law in place, so what? You're going to arrest people, imprison them, beat them or not, and then it brings us back to what I'm saying. Let us organize this industry. For example, we have different levels at which some of these things happen. In terms of the waters, who's helping at the water stage? When we get there,
that's where you do have the fisheries protection units that were implemented,
which is there.
Yes.
Now you have, when looking at the water, we're looking at the vessels used, the gear used,
the fishing methods applied,
where to fish, what to fish, who to fish. At that point, let us have another part that handles the aftermath of the waters. When the fish get to the land, how is it handled?
So basically a chain of interaction in ensuring that from water management and fish management to the end of it, processing,
for example,
exporting or consuming.
It has been a big challenge to many of these people. That's the reason why we have very, very low income. Okay, not really low, but low income. What would be getting is not what we are getting because of storage. How many facilities has government put there
for storage?
If let's imagine if this policy is in Parliament, I would want to hear more Parliament suggest that you don't stop people from, but let government be the biggest buyer, then for it to sell. It means that your price you want to sell in Europe, there are Ugandans who can afford it. Why are you saying we shouldn't eat Naira? Who told you we can't afford the same price with people in Europe? So I find that a very myopic way of thinking about.
Who says the European cannot afford the price of Uganda?
I mean, I don't
Where
understand.
does they come down to the price of Uganda? Okay, speaking of prices, we get to see statistically between January and July 2020, we had 11,000 tons, 402 tons worth 268 billion shillings collected from just that period of 6 months, which of course is a decline of 46% from the reflection of still the same time frame back in 2019, Jan to July, where we collected 17,541 tons that remunerated 392 billion shillings worth of revenue. Now imagine that money coming in and it could help the state run its affairs. I think that would be a positive. Again, it also depends on how you look at it, not from a selfish manner, but if you look at it from the potential this industry has in actually getting government, getting this country revenue that can help it run and also service the public the way it's supposed to service the public, better quality services to the public at the end of the day.
Actually, yeah, as you put it, the question would be, we are losing this at what cost? At the cost of what? You get it? At the cost so we can promote corruption, so the money can come in and someone will take it after the IGG comes out to say that we lose over 20 trillion annually in corruption? Is it worthy for us to make such risks? But secondly, who's catering for the employment for the people? And between you and me, Priscilla, I just want to give you a study of an area of Rubaga. Go to Kabusu alone, go to Nalukolongo, go to Ndeba, go to Katwe, you know, go to Kabowa, go to all those places. How many people have fed their families on this? I mean, we need to think, you know, out of the confines. The trade is not
just about money, but the trade should, you know, come down to look at the livelihood transformation.
We cannot limit here. Yeah. Yes. We can't limit our thoughts to what Uganda will get, what Uganda will get. I think we need to be a bit...
Actually, this morning I was looking, you know, through Twitter, and someone actually made that comment and said, who is Uganda?
That's the whole point. And that's what I'm saying. Now, you're making a choice to risk between who survives, who needs survival. Is it the abstract Uganda or the abstract Ugandan? Are we, at some point we shall end up having a war between these two, Uganda and Ugandans.
Okay.
Because of some of these unending trends that are trying to come. Because if you want to talk about this whole Nile patch thing, you will have to discuss it deeper than just the issue of revenue.
Definitely.
And in terms of livelihood, I can tell you there are people who fend, and right from the waters, the people who survive, whose survival depends entirely on such things. So instead of us narrowing down this discussion to, I heard the gentleman saying that Uganda will have a great deal. How about the Ugandans? For me, I will tell you honestly and truly, Priscilla, let's formalize some of these informal sector works.
Okay. All right. Of course, this calls also invite for authorities such as the Uganda Investment Authority and what their take is on such matters and the protection for the local investors for that. In that regard, so that there's a balance and fairness in these policies and who they actually get to quote unquote benefit. But looking at some of the reactions from the members of parliament on the committee, Helen Nachimuli, who's woman member of parliament in Kalangala district, said competition is healthy, but monopoly will lead to having a lot of fish unconsumed and therefore even not exported. But also looking at it from the perspective of selfish move, she does not agree with it. Let's look at this in case this amendment is made to the fisheries bill. I will look at that Mputa. Now I am hungry. Breakfast, I'm going to go and look for Nile patch, also known as Mputa, and enjoy it, you know, with a lemon. It is very, very nice.
Muogo, kachumba, avocado, and a bit of...
and the grilled one is even on another level.
So
that's satisfactory.
How do you play on that?
How? Oh, that's far from the discussion, Felix. Back to the reactions from the members of parliament. The attraction of monopoly, if this is to be considered.
You see, we have been victims of this, and this isn't the first time that such a thing is happening. I can give you an example of what's like. Imagine, and I want to use a family setup. You cook food to sell to neighbors, and you tell your kids anyway
that you're not allowed to.
I just don't. But when you talk about monopoly, the question is, at the end of the day, Priscilla, takes us back to the same question. If monopoly be there, what is the benefit?
Okay.
How much are you benefiting out of such monopoly? Are we going to see that Ugandans will benefit, and at all levels? That's why I'm saying that probably this wasn't well elaborate, but I can tell you that the fact that it's starting to be discussed, we should be worried.
We should be worried.
By the time the thing is in parliament for discussion,
up in our fridges.
That's the thing. And
put up for Christmas stock now.
Can you imagine how? But also, we must appreciate the distinction that comes with us being Ugandans. Before we know, we shall maybe be trading ourselves. We shall have people selling their organs. We have had these stories. That's how it all starts. Kugamba,
at the expense of Uganda.
Like I beg to go even tradition that tosobola kwetunda lwakubanga sente. You cannot sell everything because of money.
Okay.
We can't sell everything because we want money. How much money do we want? That's the question.
There's never enough money that
and
you
that's
want.
the whole thing.
Yes.
So we cannot,
because
these are the simple things we can still enjoy as
government
being
budget
Ugandans.
or the national budget we're trying to finance here grows bigger every single year. It is grows an
we have sold soil.
Yes.
We have sold sand to abroad.
Actually, we've had
exported
this issue
sand,
with regards to sand. The Chinese claiming Rwanda and being their territory and having authority over the sand.
That's the whole thing. How much can we sell? Before you know, won't they sell us? They'll start with the big-eyed people and they say, "Abamasaba nebeta giba echuba." Maybe in China there are not enough tall people. Then before you know, they're saying the ones who have big body. So before we know, and we will get there.
Yeah.
So we can't be selling everything.
Well, surely it's not a laughing matter. MP Bade County Charles Tebandeke also came out and made a comment. If it's not healthy for them, then it's better for them to leave the market so that Ugandans can process this fish locally and sell to the markets regionally. Because even the regional trade, these are some of the things can actually boost regional trade between East Africa and South Africa, between East Africa and the Maghreb region.
And besides that, Priscilla, this is an eye-opener for government. How about we jump on it? Or probably, if those people can, let them bring that money and invest here. Process everything here, and then also we can sell finished products, whatever is needed outside there. So I think for me, away from just a discussion of having these statements that we have everything done here, we can sell a fine product. That's what I think.
Well, a seasoned journalist, Tony Geoffrey Owana, said, I might be misunderstood, but I think exporters were not ordering, but asking us to treat Mputa like we treated coffee once upon a time. Coffee earns us more exported than if jealously retrained here as beans for mulching in rituals. That's a response that has come in that regard. Also, we do have some other reactions that are coming here. Good morning, comrades. I personally don't remember having eaten Nile perch beyond 5 times, but for God's sake, why would it be stopped consumed by locals? It is the biggest export currently, or is it the biggest export currently, or question marks? Several questions are itching for me. Cricket Derek Gagamel in Machindi Wafu. Another reaction here. This is very unfair because Mputa is part of Uganda tradition for the fact that it wasn't just imported but has forever been a part of us, and it would be such an assassination for us fish eaters in Uganda. Okay, I'll take those reactions. We'll look at other reactions later on. But this causes us to also look at it, and it's my prayer that the committee can, have as much research done into this. It's a good initiative, but you see, you also have to protect Uganda in terms of tourism. Tourists come here to eat fish. Tourists come here to actually just fish these things and see how big they are and make their records and go back home. So if you take away this, that could affect tourism. Anyway, it's a very long discussion, but we want to hear more of your comments in this regard. For now, allow us to take a short break, and then when we return, we're going to be looking at the tabloids. The commitment is that, of course, this bill is still present before the Committee of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries. It's still going to be reviewed. The positives about it is that they have accepted, when it comes to registration and licensing of fishermen and their vessels, to be able to handle the illegal fishing within the region, of which we saw when we did have the implementation of the Fisheries Protection Unit. It has gone a long way in actually increasing the revenue that we've gotten out of the country from its implementation 3-4 years ago, which is a positive. So sometimes, yes, these things might be sentimental to us as Ugandans because they're part of our daily life, but we also have to look at it from the bigger spectrum. If we were, having this as exported, of course not refuse us to eat it, but have a balance, strike a balance, and amendments are good for both parties. That's the whole point. Shouldn't be anyway. Anyway, we continue with Good Morning Uganda.
You could just buy a new smartphone from anywhere in Uganda. Dial *175 *94 hash to activate their 100% double data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles for 3 months. Better yet, you automatically receive free 1 GB valid for 30 days. You are hooked already, aren't you? Enjoy a 100% double data bonus from Airtel. Buy a smartphone from anywhere in Uganda and insert an Airtel SIM card. Dial *175 *94 hash to activate a 100% data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles. Valid for 3 months. Dial *175 hash and select your preferred bundle to activate a 100% data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles. Valid for 3 months. Airtel, the smartphone network.
It's no secret that ICT makes learning easy.
The strides made in our field couldn't be possible without it.
And now we can watch our favorite shows.
My radio is my best friend.
UCC provides an enabling regulatory environment and policy guidance for healthy competition. We also facilitate ease of doing business in the communications sector through licensing, standardization, spectrum management, tariff regulation, rural communication development, and consumer empowerment. An informed consumer is an empowered consumer. UCC supports local content and innovations. Driving the development of a robust communication sector in Uganda is Uganda Communications Commission.
Grow together with one of Uganda's largest companies. Apply for MTN shares for as low as 100,000 Uganda shillings. And when you apply using MTN Mobile Money, you get 10 free extra shares for every 100 shares you apply for. Dial *165 *65 hash or use the MyMTN app to apply now. The terms and conditions of the offer and other important information are set out in the prospectus. For assistance, visit any MTN service center or Stanbic Bank branch countrywide or a licensed broker.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, now turning to the tabloids, I will be starting off with the Daily Monitor, where we'll be looking at ADF top brass and its terror network. Now they give you in pictures here some of the people who are in that particular racket. Now the hierarchy of the group in DR Congo and becoming part of the Islamic State in 2018. ISIS claims terror attack in Kampala. Now Museveni condemns act to crack down some of the perpetrators. Also, Sudan's military seized power in coup. Now also they give you some of those tenders. Now in Rainbow, I want to be a voice for the voiceless at Ugonza, and explosion in bus kills one and injures many others.
Black and white 37 survived bus bomb explosion. And of course on the side we look at the Sudanese coup. Army arrests civilian leaders. 2 trillion shillings set aside for Kampala roads. You do have S1 and Senior 5 works in regards to chemistry, biology and mathematics. 14 border riders face murder charges, and down there 1 dead, property worth billions destroyed in Mbara Inferno.
Now again inside the Daily Monitor, we see National Water to pay Mukono locals affected by water pipe burst, and selection for S1 and S5 to start. And of course also from the archives, a photo of His Excellency the President and his colleagues then in 1980 there, and the commission which was in office from, that is April 1979. Now today in history, Obote's escort returns from Germany hospital, and infant receives baboon heart. That was in 1984.
For national news on page 2, you get to look at clergy in blood donation drive there. There's a picture of the Bishop of Namirembe Diocese, Right Reverend Wilberforce Chitio, getting himself, the drive and donating some blood there. You do have your landmarks where they get to look at healing wonders of the Empire Hot Springs, and of course a COVID-19 tracker there where you're having new confirmed cases for us in Uganda 48, and you do have a positivity rate of 1.1%. New deaths, we have so far not registered any deaths as of this morning, but the death toll overall stands at 3,200. Today in history, back in October 2020, back in October 1997, 232 teachers killed by LRS since the start of the rebellion, a UN report says.
Now in sports, in the Daily Monitor, Uganda Premier League there, we see Express Mutiaba Muzamiru goes away without official leave. Now still Crested Cranes hunt for gold in Ethiopia, and we see Najemba and company will seek to score against Ethiopia in Addis Ababa. A netball, police, that is Bimon poor organization in UCU defeat. Now also Mutiaba here, Wada Wananchi denies I treble, Weatherhead chases double, and Oilers taking no opponent lightly, coach comes out to say. And for the new vision in sports, you have Insider, where they bring you a story about Verstappen's rest in terms of Formula One. And for local sports, you look at Cash Boom. Winnie Chiplimo, a boutique owner in Captura, is one of the traders to report a rise in sales. Business booms ahead of the Chapter Gay introduction. Those are some of the stories. But also building for gold is another story that is coming through from Uganda's national badminton players that are on duty right now as we speak. On the Daily Nation, we're looking at Ruto pulls a first one on parties. Of course, they are giving a break digest into what's happening in Kenya's politics now. No promises ahead of the same, but we see Deputy President has yielded to demands. And of course, also much is in the papers that you need to interest yourself when you get a copy of such papers. But far from that, also there is looking at a long arm of the law and what beauty, now a multi-billion shilling industry in Kenya, and that same applies also for some Ugandans. But also they give you a breakdown on how far COVID has done and where they have gotten to with that. But having looked at the tabloids and the papers, we will now dive into traffic with Priscilla, so she'll let us know from where to where.
All right, thank you so much, Felix Nkunda. Well, before we get into from where to where, did you know that there are these two places that keep confusing people? The words sound the same, sound similar, but they're actually not the same locations. However, they are within the same area code, and that is Wakiso district. So there is a place called Kaboa and there's a place called Luboa. Those are two different places. Kaboa is around Najanankumbi Nyanama. Luboa is actually on Entebbe Road shortly after Zana. There's another place that confuses people. There's Liamutundwe and Mutundwe. Mutundwe is found on the other side of Wankurukuku, and then you do have Liamutundwe that is actually also found on the Kampala and Entebbe highway. So these are places that actually usually confuse people. Ogamba Mutundwe or Liamutundwe. Anyway, that is just for you to make a difference. But looking at the Kampala and Entebbe road generally, traffic flow this morning, we are starting it off at Chitalia, where you have the diversionary route that will connect you to the Kampala Express Highway in case you just want a direct, swift and shorter route with the shortest time possible compared to the main route, of course, that has a lot of traffic, trading centers that slow down the traffic, the presence of public transport on the road that is usually not conducting themselves well or abusing the road in one way or another, border riders that making all sorts of of impasses that are improper. To avoid all that, you definitely can do the Kampala-Entebbe Express Highway and come out from Kajansi, and you'd have avoided this whole stretch from Chitalia, Chisubi, and then Namulanda, Bwebaja onto the area of Kajansi through Chitende. But of course, if you do come from these particular areas, and it could be maybe a longer stretch for you to go to the Kampala-Entebbe Express Highway, then some of the spots that do have a lot of traffic right now, the area of Chisubi is having some traffic jam there in the sharp corner where you do have University of Chisubi, you do have St. Savio, that area code where you do have Kosu Rehabilitation Hospital. That area is a trading area, and so as of this morning, because of the residential area that is growing around this particular part of Entebbe Highway, you also get to see that the markets are now open, businesses are open, trade basically is starting to kick off in the area or trading area of Chisubi, and so it is the indication of the traffic jam that you are seeing. But again, the red zones are minimal compared to the orange zones there, so meaning that it's traffic jam that is bearable. Actually, ironically, you're seeing the traffic jam more on the traffic coming in from Kampala heading to Entebbe town directly than it is for the traffic coming in from Entebbe coming into the heart of the city or heading into Kajansi for that matter. Another hot spot that we are seeing on Entebbe Kampala Highway this morning is where you do have Werenga. That area, also known as Kauku, is also having traffic jam this morning. Again, commuter taxis contributing to this traffic jam, people trying to get into the heart of the city or ensure that trade goes on in Kauku area code. That is also another hot spot. Past that, you actually may just be okay for the rest of the route past Chisubi High. You get to see that in Bwebaja, there's not traffic that we are experiencing. The rest of the routes seem to be okay. Getting into the area of Chitende, now from Chitende onto the Kajansi roundabout is where you are seeing traffic jams starting to pick up, especially for those that are heading onto the Kajansi roundabout, either to join Entebbe Road or access the Entebbe Express Highway. And so picking it up from around Quality Supermarket onto Chitende Highway, you get to have that traffic now having a slow entry into Kajansi, so slow to the extent that it's more or less literally a standstill sort of traffic jam heading into Kajansi. But of course, this traffic that is managing the police that is managing the traffic there, interacting with the Kajansi roundabout. Away from that, you get to enter then into the areas of Seguku that brings in traffic from Katare, Wankulukuku Road, Reza, and those areas don't seem to be having any jam right now up until you get to Zana. I think Zana is where you would then be seeing some traffic jam building up for those that are coming in from Bata, Namasuba, then heading into Entebbe Road around Freedom City. If you stay in the areas of Najanankumbi upward, or you're coming in from Nyana Makabua downward, there's not so much jam around Freedom City if that's your entry point. And then you get to see the jam on Entebbe Road building up right from Najanankumbi, and then it connects to the Shibuya roundabout. Now that is where you trust me, these cars can be in a line all the way up to 10 a.m. So if you need to do something in time or on time, please find alternative ways to avoid this traffic. Also, given the fact that the Kampala flyover is also having continued works, now as of yesterday, there is that diversionary route that has been created around Nachivo Blue. Now the diversionary route only allows in one car per time. Now imagine all the traffic that is coming in from Machindia Division, Rubaga Division, having to go through that one tunnel car per car. Not even car plus border, but it's car per car, meaning that that traffic jam is going to be taking a lot more time. Advised is that you find alternative routes to some of these places. Anyway, looking at some of your reactions in regards to Emputa versus Ngege. and what you particularly think about the poll question of this morning in regards to the proposal, by processors and investors on causing a local ban on consuming of Nile perch so that it can be exported to European markets for revenue remuneration for the country. Why particularly the Nile perch is needed, not others? That's a very good question, because I remember Mr. Sulaj actually did make a comment and say there's a lot of tilapia. If anything, fish caging is doing a lot of tilapia more than Nile perch. So that's a very good question. Then why don't they export Nile perch instead of our mputa? Okay, we do have another reaction here from Godfrey, who is saying let them raise the price of Nile perch. The exporter can buy it at say 14,000 per kilo and locals get to buy it at 18,000 per kilo. Who should we blame? That's a good one. Who should be considered first? All right. Well, that's definitely some of your reactions. Okay, we do have some reactions that are coming through, and we'll definitely be getting to you later on. Of course, we do have our friend and colleague at Magic 100, Tony Kent, they're also having the same conversation, and some people have come out to react. John Ban says, Kent, at times I'm baffled. How can someone even think of this? OMG, and you will find such a guy Ngaringa I nenteve mu church, meaning that they have even a personal chair in the church, because matters they might fear God, they have disregard for other humans. Those are some of the reactions. We do have Kenneth Bintu, who says, what do you expect when a move is brought by a person who does not even enjoy Nile perch? That means that for them it may not be their interest. Then we also do have Obita Dennis, who says, I think we should disagree more with the way our media reports back to the citizens. We export 28% and consume locally 72%. So there is some balance there that can be looked into in this regard of the conversation. We do have Tom Hendo Fred, who says, I support the idea of Nile perch being only for export, for I will apply for a visa to go eat Nile perch abroad. Reason, traveling. Okay, that would be a good one. Imagine if they export it, we are also now given a reason to go to other countries and say, yeah, I've gone to Europe to what reason? You are at the UK embassy. Reason for traveling? Eating Nile perch. Isn't that interesting, Molen Kenana? They would laugh, definitely.
Chomhendo's comments. He's willing to get the visa just to go and get the now exported Nile perch. Isn't that interesting? I mean, come on. But this is some of the humor that is coming through as we talk about this Nile perch issue, really.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And then what is your opinion in regards to this particular conversation?
I think my line of where I want this is clear. I like Mbota. I can't imagine getting visa to have to go to somewhere else to have the Nile perch that is actually originally here. How about they put a price to it? If it's all about the money, that that's what they are looking for, that is why they are exporting, put a price and let's see who can afford. I mean, we have a lot of fish that is expensive, and people still go to the hotels and get it.
Actually, when you
so
put
how
it
about
that
put
way,
a price on it?
Yeah, when you put it that way, you are causing me to actually, think bigger, because the Chinese have their things here, their seafood here, the shrimp, the lobsters, and they come in here on a very minimal price because, they're investors and they bring it here, and we're supposed to consume it at a higher price, which is really unfair. So if this table was to flip, what would it look like for the others? Anyway, away from that, Uganda police has issued a protect and serve alert. In case of any suspicious behavior or objects, the public is advised to call the following numbers. You can call 0800 12229, or you can call 0707 600 773, or you can call them on an MTN line 0776 999 136, or you can call them on a Mango line 0714 667743, and another one which would be 0712 0722667717. For more details, or you want to get these numbers, you can head over to our Twitter handle, which is at UBC TV Uganda, and be able to pick up on these numbers and save them. You just never know when you will need to make this phone call. We've had a second bombing as of yesterday. That's 48 hours straight, literally. We don't know what is yet to happen, but rather let us be vigilant and let's be one another's keepers. Over to you, Molen Kenyona.
Yes, and interesting enough, something is just clicking in my mind about this fish thing. Now, those who like fish know the price of salmon. If you've gone to a hotel to ask for this, usually you actually have to order for it before. You can't just have it that very day. For some hotels, you have to like order, make reservations before. So that is the price that a lot of people pay for. Now, that is something that also comes to mind. But anyway, away from the fish, we want to take a look into what weather and nature is looking like. Now, there is good news that most of the countries that are party to the accord, which is the Paris Agreement, have submitted their nationally determined contributions. Now, these contributions work as a pathway in which particular countries are looking at to cut carbon emissions and also to curb the crisis of climate change. Now, Uganda is party to this and has also submitted some of the updated and renewed plans on what our climate status is looking like across the country. But at the same time, there is bad news. Bad news is that these NDCs, or the nationally determined contributions, are indicating that we are no longer on a path that we were set to do in 2015, that is with the Paris Agreement Accord. Now, the current path that we have from what has been analyzed over 143 countries, those are parties to the climate change agreement, that is the Paris Agreement, show that we are no longer looking at 1.5 by the end of this decade, but rather we could be rising to 2.7 degrees Celsius. Now, how worrying is this? It means that even with countries looking at more plans, even with countries submitting all these plans that they have to cut carbon emissions, go to renewable energy, most of these are not helping when it comes to keeping temperatures to well below 2 degrees centigrade. A target that was set up in 2015, and this target is basically looking at ways how we can reduce carbon emissions. But guess what? If we were to move renewable and also look at some of the plans that we have to start or to stop fossil fuels, actually, which are the biggest contributors of these greenhouse gases, the heat trapping gases, then we start to slow down. When you see the curves, there is that red curve that is showing our path for the NDCs. But also look at the ones in blue. Now, the one that is in light blue, which is below 1.5 degrees centigrade, is if we stop, that is, if we stop the use of fossil fuels, and also look at the fact that we could move to renewable, then we are on that light blue path. Then, if we follow the target that was given out from the Paris Agreement, that looks at mostly cutting emissions, of course, for high pollutants, the countries that are polluting most across the globe, China is inclusive in that category. Then we look at a fact that we could be at a path of 1.5 degrees centigrade within limited overshoot. Now, that is something that we can achieve, but only if we commit to what has been agreed upon. Also, we look at the fact that the NDCs are not helping. Now, this comes just a few days before we head for Glasgow, that is at the anticipated, highly anticipated actually, climate summits in Glasgow, where world leaders will come together to look at what is the plan. We need to avert this pandemic. It is a pandemic. We're seeing COVID-19 because it is just right in front of us. But this is something that we are ignoring, and only to see the challenges that it is bringing across the world. Now, talking about the countries that are polluting most, this morning I woke up to a report that is coming in from China. Now, just a few days ago, there was a directive from the Chinese government that they should double on the production of coal. Now, coal, as we all know, is the biggest fossil fuel consumed in China. Now, their biggest source of energy is coal, but this is something that they have committed to stop. Now, to my surprise this morning, the Chinese government is saying that they are actually willing to move towards the targets set by the Paris Agreement. They want to cut carbon emissions. But at the same time, they are the biggest polluters. Now, the Chinese president hasn't left the country ever since the pandemic. It is, we are not sure whether he will actually attend the summit in Glasgow, but what they are saying is that they are yet to reveal the delegates that will represent China to this climate summit. However, they are also not revealing their plans or targets, what they are supposed to do to cut these emissions, although we've seen just a week ago that they want to double the production of coal, which we are all against. Now they are coming up to say, well, look, we actually committed to cutting down emissions. So I think this is some of the interesting stuff that should go down in Glasgow. This is one that I'm actually interested in seeing, especially from big polluters like China. But what is our worry here? What are some of the extreme weather events that we're seeing with this laxity in controlling climate change? Well, one that is making headlines for me this morning is a story from Mali. Now, there is a lake that is Lake Fajuini. This lake has been there for the last 5 decades. And what we're looking at right now is the fact that it has dried up. The place that was once a lake is now a desert. Now, this was a result of a drought. Now, this drought was something that devastated Mali starting from the 1970s. Now, you look at the fact that there was war at the same time, and people have had to move from their homes. Now, what you're seeing, that image on the screen, is showing basically what is left of that lake. Well, also part of what is being looked at across Mali is the fact that we look at the coverage, what this lake was actually covering before the drought came in. Now, this has obviously, the schools that were in that area had to close, and also people had to move away from this area. Now, that is how climate extremes can go to the extent of devastating the entire country, and this is something that we should be worried about. Now, worry is not just that. I'm telling you, today is just only bad news. Now, yesterday, the World Meteorological Organization did release a report showing the status of the climate, the heat-trapping gases in the atmosphere, specifically looking at carbon dioxide. And guess what? It is not looking good either. Now, they are saying that land ecosystems and oceans absorb about half of carbon dioxide and are a buffer against even greater temperature increase. For over years, we have looked at land ecosystems and oceans to be our savior in terms of holding carbon dioxide, and most of, because the carbon dioxide traps heat, but when that heat is again absorbed by the oceans, and specifically looking at land ecosystems like trees, we all know that they do trap some of that heat. But now, the level that we are at in terms of carbon dioxide, and we did read this story earlier today, it shows that even with the land ecosystem there and the oceans, this level is going beyond what was expected, and we could be looking at more devastating effects. Guess what? It goes beyond that, and I can tell you it's devastating. Back to the story actually about that lake, that is Lake Fajuini in Mali. Now, I want to show you how this was looking like. That was in 1987. That is the area that was covered by the lake at that particular time. You can easily see what is in what looks to be green on that map. That is the coverage that it was in 1987. Now, much of that is actually devastating, because with continued variations in climate, with continued loss of water from this area, people had already started moving even at this particular time because of the war. But then you look at the fact that the lake did continue losing waters, and what is left of this place now is what we're seeing so far across Mali. The lake has dried up, and what is left of it is just a desert. This is something very devastating for this morning, and looking at how climate change could really push us. But yes, back home here, we want to also look at how the weather is looking like over the country. We did wake up to mostly clear skies across most areas. We have mostly sunny conditions, that is across the Kirabo region, across parts of eastern Uganda, very sunny skies. We also see some of the rainy conditions that did start off, that is across parts of central northern Uganda. Now that system is starting to clear. At least there were a lot of clouds towards Gulu, but those are also starting to clear. We do have one that started off south of Lake Victoria, but that is also looking like it could only be moving towards Rwanda, so that is not to worry about. There are some clouds that are also developing across parts of Mbarara that could also clear up as we head into the afternoon. But it looks like it is quite a pleasant start of for today. However, later in the afternoon, something to look out for is that we are likely to have rains, especially for midwestern Uganda, that is Masindi, Toroko. This area, you can look out for rains in the afternoon. Also parts of Chisoro, Kabale, that area could be looking at more rains as the day progresses. Parts of West Nile as well, but I can tell you we're likely to remain with intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions that will be across most areas within the Choga region. We also have parts of eastern Uganda as well as the Karamoja region. Northern Uganda as well could be looking at a clearing trend later as we look at the end of the day. But temperatures are likely to remain equally warm, so you can expect at least dress in layers for those areas that are likely to have sunny conditions. Well, I'll leave you at that. We do have Good Morning Uganda agenda coming up, and later we'll also be looking at sports updates. My name is Molen Kenyana, wishing you a wonderful morning.